and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm looking across the table and I see a freshly trimmed beard attached to my co-host, Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Attached to? Is it prosthetic?
Yeah.
Is that what you're accusing me of?
I just don't trust it. I haven't seen it looking like this before.
Beard wig?
Yeah, beard wig.
Yeah.
Beard wig. You had the whole thing shaved off and you had a beard wig added.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, you know?
But genuinely...
If I shave my whole beard off, my wife would have some problems with it.
She would? Is she pro-beard?
She's pro-beard, for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Genuinely looking good.
Thank you.
I like it.
I appreciate that, my friend.
I'm just building you up because we're going to talk Man United Huddersfield.
Yeah, it's not great.
Today.
And U17s, also not great.
Yeah, well, depends where you're from.
And DC United, also not great.
Yeah. So, thumbs up,
Rough
thumbs
weekend.
down. Thumbs up, thumbs down, weekend review. If you've never heard it before, this is where the Total Soccer Show looks back on all the soccer we were able to watch this weekend. There's a lot of soccer. We can't watch all of it. Please don't send us a tweet that says no team ? The answer's no. If we didn't see it, we can't talk about it.
This is true.
Fair? We are but two men with six eyes.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I'm wearing glasses.
Oh, you're bespectacles?
Yeah, I'm bespectacled. It makes me four eyes. So do you want to start in the Premier League, as we always do? I'm going to invite you to choose where to start.
I mean, I feel like the biggest talking point of the weekend was Spurs, 4-1 win over Liverpool. Should we start there?
Are you saying that because you don't want to talk about United and Huddersfield? Because I think that is the biggest. I think that's the biggest
United
thing
and
of the
Huddersfield?
weekend. Yeah, but let's start Liverpool Spurs.
I don't think it's as surprising. It is kind of genuinely how I feel. Like I think United have maybe flattered to deceive, if that makes sense, and like haven't been quite as impressive as maybe that record would show. There have been some cracks and some concerns, and I think maybe Huddersfield exploited that, and United maybe helped them exploit that.
Aaron Moyes stuck his foot in one of those cracks and busted it wide open.
Yeah, whereas the Spurs-Liverpool game, I think for Liverpool fans, obviously probably similar feelings that I have about Man United.
Yeah.
But I mean, for Tottenham fans and for neutrals alike, I mean, it's an incredibly exciting game. It was end-to-end. It was electric stuff with some crazy moments as well. So I say we start there.
It finished Spurs 4, Liverpool 1 at Wembley in front of 80,000, which I believe is a new record for the Premier League. So where are your thumbs going, Taylor?
I'm going to say thumbs up to Dejan Lovren because he just needs a thumbs up. He had a rough day. Subbed off in, the 31st minute? Something like that?
Subbed him off.
Yes, and definitely at fault for the second goal. I'm going to say probably at fault for the first goal as well. And then just an all-around very shaky game. Subbed off in 31st minute. If you're the center back, not ideal. If you're any player, not ideal.
It was very much like Jurgen Klopp pointing the finger and teeth of blame directly at Dejan Lovren.
I mean, that's something he probably would do, yeah.
Bearing the teeth of blame straight at Dejan Lovren.
Yep.
Here's how I phrased it. Because obviously we're focusing on the same things here, right? Because Harry Kane scored twice as Spurs beat Liverpool 4-1.
Yep.
I've got thumbs up to Harry Kane on the first goal for reading Liverpool's offside line as enthusiastically as peak Nicolas Cage read his lines. And thumbs down, thumbs down. Before I say this, I want to say I regret nothing. Thumbs down to Dejan Lovren for wearing the prison boots from Face Off.
There it is. I was wondering what movie you watched or saw referenced this weekend. That was going to be my question. So did you see Face Off this weekend?
No, I've just seen it a lot.
Okay. Do you know the Easter egg thing about those boots?
Oh, I knew I could mention a movie without getting sidetracked. What's the Easter egg thing about those boots?
Did you ever see the Mario Brothers movie?
No.
Those boots are from the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, very nice.
And also, good on you for not seeing that movie.
And also, they're from Wembley this weekend. Because if you watch Dejan Lovren, I would so Harry Kane does do a good job of reading the offside line across the way. But the biggest thing to me is when Kieran Trippier chips that ball forward, Dejan Lovren could jump and head that ball, and he just, for some reason, cannot leave the ground. And I think the prison warden flicked the switch, and he was just he was magnetically sealed to the ground.
I genuinely think he just assumes, he's offside. Because Dejan Lovren, when he checked, I think thought he was the last man, so he stepped forward. You know who did not? Joe Gomez, who stayed
right back
and kept Harry Kane on, because Harry Kane basically was opened up in the way that he could see, he's keeping me on, I know I'm good to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He read the offside line enthusiastically.
But I think Dejan Lovren thought, he's behind me, definitely offside, don't even need to worry about it. I was supposed to worry about it.
All right, so I get that it's not all Dejan Lovren's fault, right? But I think we should explain to Dejan Lovren that the offside line does not work up and down.
No.
It only works side to side.
I mean, I would also
say jumping doesn't break the offside trap.
No,
if you
jump
in.
I would say that's a big part of it. Is you've got to go for it, and then once you turn and see that the referee's flag is down or the AR's flag is down, you got to go. And he kind of continues to check for a minute in disbelief, and then even in that little bit, obviously he's beat at that point by Harry Harry Kane. But then Matip slows him down enough that there is the second attempt for the block.
And by the way,
Lovren has stopped to check the AR, he's not there to block.
Matip does the same thing. Yep. He puts his arm in the air and stands there staring at the linesman. And in the time that he spends doing that, he could have intercepted Harry Kane.
Yes.
Yeah. So Liverpool get all those things wrong at the back.
Well, and I would say, if we're going to call everybody out, we also have to add Simon Mignolet to this equation, because when that ball goes over the top and Harry Kane is sort of in from a very tight angle in a position that he's probably not going to score, Simon Mignolet just comes charging out. And I think either maybe thinks he's going to get to the ball first, because it did seem like a lot of players in this game underestimated the speed of Harry Kane. Not to say that he's blazing fast, but it felt like I think the big thing for me with Harry Kane is that he is not blazing fast, but there is no discernible drop-off between when he has the ball and when he doesn't have the ball in terms of how fast he is. Because I felt like I saw him sprint, and I saw him sprint with the ball, and it seemed about the same thing. So maybe Mignolet just thought, like, oh, he's got the ball, it's going to be even slower. Uh-oh.
So the thing about Harry Kane then we're saying is he might not be fast, but he never slows down.
Yeah.
Like he very quickly gets to top speed because there's not that far to go.
But he runs. I mean, he works, man. Like the Match of the Day guys, they pointed out a sequence where he
Have
loses.
you been watching BBC Match of the Day again?
Of course I have. I always do. There's a sequence in which he I believe gets dispossessed or has like a bad pass to Kane.
Yeah.
About 20 yards from Liverpool's goal.
I think it leads to Mohamed Salah's goal.
No, there's another one where he gets dispossessed and he runs 95 yards back to like help out in defense and force it out for, I think, a throw-in.
Okay.
Like he comes all the way back to help defend. So he's on both sides of the ball doing a lot of running.
So we're pro Harry Kane?
Yeah, I think so. Also doing a decent amount of running for the second goal, and that is 100% at Daryl Lovren's expense.
Yes, it is. All right, talk us through that.
So if you watch like the abbreviated highlights of this game, you'll think like, oh, this is where Liverpool's first goal comes from, because they've got the ball, they're moving it around, they put in a cross, then they put in another cross. That second cross is easily caught by Hugo Lloris, who then throws the ball, I would say conservatively 50 yards, maybe 60 yards. And when he throws it, Daryl Lovren is kind of backpedaling and then thinks, oh, I can win this ball. The Match of the Day gentleman thought that maybe he had been screamed at by Jurgen Klopp for being reactive or reactionary in that first goal. So he was like, well, not this time. And then completely misjudges it. Ball goes right over his head.
I think the prison boots were still 50% on. So he just couldn't get much clearance off the ground.
They were like released early and then turned back on. So it was an awkward jump.
If you haven't seen Face Off, the show makes no sense so far.
You have magnetized boots that make you stay to the floor.
There we go. Thank you.
We good? All right.
I'll say this
Super
as well.
Prison.
Later in the game...
God, that movie's so terrible.
Later in the game, so they sub Daryl Lovren out in the 31st minute, right, which is embarrassing for a centre-back. As we said, you're getting all the blame. I think Joe Gomez moves to centre-back. Emre Can goes to right-back. Emre Can, goes to right-back. Harry Kane does the same thing to Emre Can in the second half. Did you see that as well? Yep. Where they sort of like, he's backing into him kind of, and just ball goes over the top and Kane manages to turn in a way that persuades Can not to jump, but lets Harry Kane escape. And I'm kind of thinking, it can't always be the defender's fault. Like the only constant in all of these incidents is Harry Kane.
Yep.
But I watched this several times. I can't figure out what he's doing that's dissuading defenders from jumping.
I don't know. I can't tell if it's just the way he positions his body. He makes it awkward for them to jump. Or is that sort of like, oh, he's not going to win the ball, so I don't need to challenge him for that one. But then that leads to like the second ball or the 50-50 ball elsewhere. So I'm not sure what it is. Maybe he's just deceptive. Maybe it's his giant head blocks out all the scenery and then they can't tell what's happening.
Can I tell you what else I enjoyed from Harry Kane?
Is it another face-off reference?
No, it's not.
Okay.
For Son's goal, which is the second...
That rant is coming, by the way. I need you to know that.
Second goal of the game.
Yeah.
Harry Kane puts in the type of ball that he's been on the end of from Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen, kind of all season and all last season and some of the season before, I think. I'm not sure if all that matches up. But it's the exact type. It's almost like he's been watching them do it. And it's like, oh, I could do that. I could bend a ball in for Son to just like bang home and put it right.
And he does. And it's a great take. I mean, it is a great take. And I think like if you watch Son's run off the ball, it is a full sprint. He blows past James Milner. Not great, but then again, what do you expect? So that combination is amazing. I also want to point out a player who you've already mentioned in terms of the thumbs up, thumbs downedness. And I'm going to say thumbs up to Kieran Trippier for getting on with it. And what I mean by that is there's a quote that I love. I actually posted it on my Instagram from
Your
Raylan
personal
Givens.
Instagram?
I did.
What's your personal Instagram handle?
I think it's TBR1984.
All right. I should
Initials
follow you.
and birthday.
All right.
But there's a quote from Raylan Givens, which I will paraphrase since we try not to swear, which is, if you run into a jerk in the morning, you run into a jerk.
Yep.
If you run into jerks all day, you're the jerk.
Right.
And I feel like in this situation, Liverpool had a few petty fouls here and there. Like Coutinho got frustrated, but in this situation, Coutinho gets frustrated that he was dispossessed and he kicks out at Trippier. Trippier gets the foul and then immediately just stands up, plays the ball quickly, and they're away. And there's not that sort of like stopping to complain to the referee and saying like, oh, maybe that should have been a card, or hey, he kicked me and yes, I know you gave the foul, but I'm still going to complain. We see that sometimes. Same thing for Dele Alli's goal. It comes from Emre Can basically just fouling somebody out of frustration.
Yeah.
Like he sweeps the leg or has that little kick of the trailing leg, gets the yellow card for it. From that free kick comes the failed clearance by Matip, comes the goal. So it just felt like Tottenham kind of got on with it, and they were the Raylan Givens, and they weren't the jerk all day.
I think Dele Alli, doesn't he, later in the game embarrasses Emre Can? There's a move that it showed up on Reddit, is where I saw it.
Yeah.
He did that kind of like spin with the ball, like so you use like your centrifugal force to bring the ball with you, and then nutmegs Emre Can while he's doing it. That was what Dele Alli did today.
Yeah.
I also want to give final thing on this game, unless you got something else. Thumbs up to it's a joint thumbs up to Pochettino for getting his tactics right, because at many times Spurs looked like they were kind of in a 5-3-2, right? Because Aurier and Trippier would stay back, and they had a back three, and then they had this really hard-working, disciplined central midfield three of Ali, Christian Eriksen, and Harry Winks. And I would say especially Ali and Eriksen, they are used to being more like the two attacking midfielders and just like going forward and having fun. But against this Liverpool team, they did this really like disciplined job where they held down central midfield and didn't get as involved in the attack.
I mean, yeah, and it worked, and it was
did.
problematic. And I would say it worked so well that really the only two moments that if you're Mauricio Pochettino you have like to think about for a second is obviously the goal, which I would say comes about
Salah,
from
yeah.
a great ball and an amazing run from Salah, and maybe a fortunate finish. That's debatable. But I would say the moment that if I'm Pochettino I'm more concerned about is Serge Aurier. I want to say like thumbs up to Serge Aurier for just always making it interesting. At the very end of the game, he just like, I think he tried to shepherd the ball out of bounds, but then changed his mind and like tried to turn and keep it in, and then just got stuck. And it was like 6 yards from their own goal.
Yeah.
And it ended up with a shot that went like just wide, but like across the front of goal and easily could have been turned in. And it just feels like Serge Aurier, every game with Tottenham has to have one moment where it's like, oh, that wasn't what you were trying to do or what you should have done. And sometimes it works. And other times it does not.
The weird duck and turn in the Champions League. Yeah. To his credit, he was playing out of position, right? He's a right back who was playing left back in this game.
Yeah, I think you should still know not to turn into pressure when you're shepherding the ball out of bounds.
All right, can we talk about, before we move on then, can we talk about Liverpool's problems?
Sure.
It seems like suddenly Liverpool's defensive problems used to be a thing where we're scoring a bunch of goals, but we're letting in some weird goals, and maybe we end up drawing and it's bad news. But like this game, it was more like they were laid bare and they lost 4-1, and it's a huge problem. And now people are looking at Jurgen Klopp and thinking, is he the long-term guy?
Well, I think the thing that's so confusing to me is that he was so frustrated after this game, obviously with Dejan Lovren with the substitution. It seems like maybe there were some words after the game as well. Dejan Lovren has like removed Liverpool from his bio and removed his banner image of Liverpool, whatever else. But
it's a social media transfer request.
Yeah, sure. The analogy that I'm going to go with here, though, is like if I have a flat tire and I change it out, put in the spare tire, the donut, and then I just continuously drive around on that for a while, like it's my fault when the donut blows out and I don't have a replacement tire.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of been Liverpool, where I said in the beginning of the season that like there are defensive problems. Like yes, their offense is amazing, but like I think my prediction was something like they're going to score more goals but have a worse record because they're going to struggle with that defense. And that's been obvious. They haven't replaced center backs, and they've sold center backs on, brought in some that were never going to be at that level. Dejan Lovren's been a problem for a while.
It was supposed to be Virgil van Dijk, right? We know that. That's who
true.
They were going hard for all through August.
Yep.
Like really trying to bring him in.
Yeah, don't publicly tap up. And maybe that's not a problem. But it just like, so I guess on the one hand, I understand Jurgen Klopp's frustration, but on the other, it's like, dude, you knew this was the case. You knew you had the donut on there and you didn't deal with it, and this is going to be the result, a blowout.
I wonder as well if it's not so much personnel as the system, because there was that high line against Spurs is kind of asking for trouble.
We even like on the free kick, going back to that one for a second, that Dele Alli eventually scores the goal off of, that's headed clear by Matip. Like if you look at it, they're standing. It's a free kick from maybe 35, 40 yards out, and the line is basically 15 yards away from where the free kick is taken. The obvious place to hold is on the 18, because then if it's overhit, it's not as much of a problem. There's not space for players to run into, and you don't have the awkward retreat of Joel Matip. So even just that moment of like holding that line where it didn't need to be held is obviously going to lead to problems.
So I'm going to be interested to see if Jurgen Klopp can fix these things before January, essentially. With the personnel he's got, can he figure out something that works for Liverpool's defence? I'm not really asking you that question because it's to be seen, right? But it's something that Klopp's going to have to work with Liverpool's defenders and with Simon Mignolet in practice and sort of get that defending down, or these types of results are going to keep happening.
Yeah, and I'd say the bigger worry there is, like, right now it's not so terrible where Liverpool are. They're only 3 points off of fourth spot in the league. But those front
not what
three...
we're expecting though, right?
No, and those front three are slowly pulling away, and Chelsea seem like maybe they're figuring some stuff out. So it is kind of, you got to figure it out sooner rather than later. Otherwise, come January, you might be not out of contention, certainly, but not in the strong position that you would like to be if you're Jurgen Klopp.
You ready to talk some Man United Huddersfield?
I believe I am.
Yeah, or Huddersfield Man United, right? This was at Huddersfield.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to start with a thumbs up to Aaron Moy for stepping when it mattered.
I hate you.
I regret nothing.
Would you care to clarify what you're talking about?
So Huddersfield beat Manchester United 2-1.
I'm just going to sigh audibly the entire time you're talking.
Shock result. But the really big moment comes when Man United are essentially trying to build from the back, right? It's Juan Mata's come deep to collect the ball, takes a slightly loose touch, and Huddersfield are really sitting deep, right? Everybody is in their own half, essentially, for Huddersfield. And Aaron Moy kind of sees the moment of like, all right, we're not just going to sit back and let them come at us, and eventually we'll break, probably. As in, it'll break us. Instead, there's this opportunity. I'm going to step. I'm going to win it. I'm going to take it off of Mata, and I'm going to drive. And I think he plays a 1-2. I can't remember who the player is he plays the 1-2 with. And then he finishes, and it's 1-0.
Yep.
So it was Aaron Moyes being sort of brave enough to just know that, and smart enough to know, this is the moment I'm going to step up and take it off of Juan Mata.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, deserves the credit. I mean, to be honest, Huddersfield, I would say, deserve the credit. I would say they didn't have like the best game by any stretch of the imagination.
Every time they got the ball and tried to build an attack, it was kind of terrible. I saw Aaron Moy put balls out of bounds. I saw Danny Williams put balls out of bounds. Like, yeah, it wasn't an impressive sort of attacking performance. It was a really solid defensive performance with it's sort of similar to Spurs, but even more so. Hogg was the holding midfielder, and then Williams and Moy were the like other holding midfielders ahead of him. So there's a whole midfield of holding midfielders. I mean, they held that midfield down,
and it will do the job because it causes problems. It causes frustration, and I do think this United team, at least on this day, they do have that mentality about them that if things start to go wrong a little bit, you see a little bit of the holes open up. You see some of the frustration. Even that second goal, which is laughably hilarious.
Yeah.
It comes from Jesse Lingard trying to play a through ball to really nobody. Like, it's basic. People have like moved out of the space, and he tries to play his through ball, and it goes straight to the goalkeeper.
I have thumb in a weird question mark shape for Jesse Lingard as a number 10.
Not great.
Jesse Lingard behind Romelu Lukaku.
Yep.
That didn't really work out.
It sure did not work out. But it was also a product of injuries, and then I guess Martial and Juan Mata not having a very good game. I believe both of them subbed out at halftime. So Jose Mourinho, to put that in perspective, Phil Jones injured in the first half. All three of his substitutions done by the start of the second half.
Wow.
Not really great when you're already 2-0 down.
And Victor Lindelof, not the best performance when he came in and played centre-back, because that second goal, it's a long kick from the keeper, whose name, I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but he gets an assist. Lassie, so he gets an assist here, I think.
Like that? Yeah. He does.
Lindelof tries to meet it, and I think what Lindelof is trying to do is just like gently nod it to Chris Smalling.
Dumb.
And instead he misses the ball entirely.
Very dumb.
And De Poitre is just in on goal and scores, and it's 2-0. Rashford gets one back late on, but like Man United never quite had enough to pull back here.
No, I don't think so.
Because of Huddersfield's defending, that sort of pulling everybody back. The thing I liked as well, they're defending. So I want to talk about Danny Williams a little bit as well, because it's an American, was played in this game, like has this great victory, hasn't even been involved in the national team for a long time. He was part of this industrious, kind of clever midfield of Hogg, Moy and Williams, who didn't just sit in the middle in like static positions. They kind of rotated around to cover space between the three of them, like really good trio of defensive midfielders stopping United coming through.
To be fair, though, I mean, United have it pretty easy after this. All they have is, I think, 6 of their next 7 games are against the top 7 of the Premier League. So that's not great.
So that'll be interesting. I mean, this is the real test for Mourinho now to sort of see what this Man United team is made of, right?
Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, Brighton, Watford, Arsenal, City.
All right.
Not great.
So next week is Man United Spurs.
Yes.
That's going to be a really interesting game. I'm excited to see that. Because, so Mourinho really closed things down against Liverpool, took the draw, basically, right? Then he somehow gets it wrong against Huddersfield, or underestimated or overestimated the sort of how up for it his players were, and underestimated Huddersfield maybe. So now suddenly this Spurs game, he can't really play for a draw there, right? If he wants to stay in the title race, because Man City beat Burnley 3-0, they're pulling away, he kind of has to do something against Spurs. Is what I think. He may think differently.
I mean, I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that Tottenham are title contenders, and so with that in mind, maybe he does kind of play it safe, knowing that like 1 point against Tottenham maybe is a good result, especially given the form they're in. That said, I would not be surprised if he does sit back, given again some of the injuries he's going to have to deal with. And especially given how good Tottenham are on the counter, then maybe he tries to nullify the counter by giving them the ball.
I think he's going to go full boring.
I mean, if he does, I think they'll lose, is my honest... Because there's just so many... Because Tottenham, it's not like they're just, we're always going to play on the counter, we're always going to sit back, absorb pressure, and then break. Like, they're more than capable and have the personnel to play exciting attacking soccer where they link up passes and have those 1-2s and get those goals. So I think if you sit back, you're sort of inviting an onslaught.
And going back to Spurs-Liverpool again, I think Tottenham now kind of have several looks that Pochettino can roll them out in. Right? They'll come out in a back four, they'll come out in a back three. It's like one striker, two strikers, as we saw against Liverpool. You kind of can't like say, this is what Spurs always do, here's how I'm going to counter it, because you don't know what's going to be coming out at you and in what shape.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I mean, and so I think that will definitely be a problem for him. The other big problem, him being Mourinho, the other big problem that I feel like you probably haven't even thought about, because why would you? Do you know the man who's been missing from Man United? The big one?
Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
No. When's the last time you saw Paul Pogba, Daryl Grove?
Oh, yeah, he's been injured. Yeah.
Long-term injury that they think might be getting worse, and so I think that's another one he'll have to navigate. Marouane Fellaini as well. It'll be interesting next week for sure. That Spurs game.
Final thing I want to think about again is Danny Williams. Did you notice that he was suddenly back in the starting lineup?
Yep.
I looked into why. It's Philip Billing, the young Danish midfielder, who I think a lot of Huddersfield fans were really up on. He twisted his ankle. I think he's going to need surgery. He's going to be out for 12 weeks. So suddenly, Danny Williams is stepping up. He's going to be in this Huddersfield lineup for the foreseeable future. And
I think if he continues, I mean, the United game you mentioned, there were some misplaced passes, as there are always going to be.
But
when
there's
you're
some
trying
good
to,
defensive midfield.
Yeah, and I think that is the key. From what I understand, he's been very well regarded by Huddersfield fans. Our friend Pav seems to enjoy him very much, but other ones as well, not just the one. I promise it's a larger sample size than that. So I do think he'll get those minutes, and I really think he might end up retaining that spot if he keeps playing as well as he has been.
All right. So
whether or not that gets a November call-up, I don't know.
Because that's the big thing, right? We've got the November 14th USA friendly against Portugal. It's in Portugal, so it's not far for Danny Williams to travel. That could be a call-up, especially if he's got a good few weeks of Premier League football, able to show his stuff to unnamed interim manager.
I would enjoy that.
All right, other big game was Everton versus Arsenal. It finished 5-2 to Arsenal. It was kind of a kicking in the end. I'm going to say...
It was kind of a kicking.
Thumbs up to AOL for dialing up some goals.
Okay.
Do you know about this?
I do not.
So Arsenal fans have now nicknamed Alexis, Ozil and Lacazette AOL.
They're better at acronyms than you are, I have to say. We had a lot of thoughts about your AGM situation.
Yeah, someone else said... so my AGM was Adams, Gonzalez and McKennie, which is the midfield I want the US to field, of teenage midfield trio.
Indeed.
I went AGM. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. Someone said it should be GAM for grown-ass men.
Or just GAM.
Just GAM.
GAM and TAM. It fits. Whatever you want to go with.
Or someone said MAG for MAG. And it would be Magnum. But I thought that was maybe a bit of a stretch. But still better than mine.
Mag works.
You got anything else for this Arsenal game?
Yeah, I've got quite a few things. I'm going to say thumbs down to Ashley Williams for a variety of reasons. Mostly that he is just not performing very well or being very smart. He started the brawl in the midweek Europa League game where he shoved the goalkeeper really unnecessarily. That led to the big brawl that led to the fan trying to punch a Lyon player, I think it was, while holding his child. That was an interesting decision. But then in this game, he gets subbed out in the 46th minute, and it frees up Everton a little bit more. They look a little bit better.
Wow, this was the week of subbing centre-backs out.
Yeah.
It really was, right?
Because Everton started in a back three and then switched to a back four when things were obviously not working. So I'm going to say thumbs down to Ashley Williams for not really covering himself in glory so far. I'm going to say thumbs up to Aaron Ramsey. If at first you don't succeed, try like 46,000 times more, and then eventually you'll score a goal. So many chances for Aaron Ramsey. And I think... because he's a player, I really do genuinely enjoy him both for Wales and Arsenal, and I was kind of rooting for him to finally get his name on the score sheet, and he finally did, but after missing like 3 or 4 very, very solid chances.
Can I say, so Everton sort of very much against the run of play, took the lead in this game. Thumbs up to the Wayne Rooney of 2002, who made a brief appearance in this game.
Yep.
So if you remember, Wayne Rooney, as a 16-year-old, I think, scored an incredible goal against Arsenal. This one was kind of similar. Not quite as good, but it had the same sort of nice bend on it.
Yeah, I think the commentator said, like, he's done it again, as though, like, he just did that the other day. It's been a while, man.
It's been 15 years. But weirdly, his hairline was in the exact same place. It's from 2002. It's gone back and magically come forward again.
I don't know how that could have possibly happened. I'm also going to say like thumbs up and down in a yin yang sort of way to Idrissa Gana Gueye.
Yeah, he changed the back of his shirt, didn't he?
It now says Ghana. Did not realize that was the case, but it's sort of when you have a player like that, you get what you get, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes you get upset. Because in this situation, the goal you mentioned from Wayne Rooney comes about from an aggressive slide tackle to win the ball back from Gueye. But then he also gets 2 yellow cards in this game for those exact
very
tackles.
Similar slide tackles,
and gets sent off.
I actually thought the slide tackle where he gets it off as Xhaka, right, to win the ball really high, which enables Rooney to shoot from the top of the box. It took me 3 watches to even realise that he touched the ball, right? Which is actually to say that it's a very, very good tackle. Because it looks kind of like clumsy and like he's taken Xhaka down and the Arsenal are hard done by. But the more you see it, the more he doesn't touch Xhaka. He just slides in and toe pokes the ball with the very tip of his toes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think like that's really impressive. But then you have those moments where it's like, oh, he's got a yellow, and then he's got a red card. And we both played in those games where it sort of is like it's great when it's working, but when suddenly it's a little bit too physical and maybe he's been spotted by the referee, that's where that sort of style can be problematic.
I thought that's kind of his game, though, right? It's just to like win hard tackles in midfield. And definitely when he was sent off is when Everton really fell apart.
Yeah, that was, I think Arsenal had 3 goals after the sending off. So that's not, although Everton scored as well, so it was 3-1 once he went. So there's that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say thumbs up to Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil as well, just because there were so many moments in this game where I was just reminded, like, oh yeah, those guys are so good.
Yeah.
Especially Alexis Sanchez doing just some dancing on the ball. Even when it wouldn't work, he would then like get the ball back and be like, all right, I'll be smart this time. But it was just really good combinations, and I would say special thumbs up if they teach Petr Cech how to look more comfortable with the ball at his feet.
That's too late now.
Yeah.
It's not happening now.
He almost gets dispossessed, or he does get dispossessed, but it ends up only being a goal kick in the first half. Second half, it's a miscommunication between him and I think Nacho, who tries to play that ball back.
I mean, I think it's just dumb play from Nacho Monreal.
Yeah.
He sort of like dribbles away and then does sort of, not a no look, but a quick turn and pass back to Petr Cech.
Yeah.
And he underhits it. So there's no chance of that not being a goal. I forgot who scores it. Is it Calvert-Lewin?
It is Niasse.
He
says, looking at the screen with the,
the
results in front of him. Right? But it just felt a little bit. I felt a little bit sad for Arsenal fans, just because it felt like everything was going great. They had to have been pumped, and then it was like, really, you can't just let us like have a 5-1 win. It has to be 5-2 with a comical sort of own goal at the very end. Come on, guys.
So I also read that AOL, Alexis, Ozil, Lacazette, this was the first time they'd played together this season due to injuries and due to sort of the slow reintegration into the team that Alexis and Ozil sort of had to go through at the start of the season.
And it wasn't very successforing. I mean, it was just from those 3 players, 3 goals and 2 assists.
Right.
That's all.
That's why, my opening things was that they dialed up some goals because they were scoring goals, getting assists, but also there's this brilliant interplay between them many times that Everton absolutely could not handle.
It took me, speaking of rewatching things from this game like 40 times, it took me as many replays to figure out the ball that Alexis Sanchez plays in for Mesut Ozil's header, because it doesn't seem like he should be able to hit it the way he's running.
Cross.
Yeah. And I was like, is it a chip? Is it outside of the foot? Is it a toe poke? At one point I thought it might be, and it's just like a little bit of a bender, but from short. But it works pretty well in the end.
And if you want evidence of how great Mesut Ozil is, that goal starts with an Ozil sort of pass from the top of his own box that splits Everton's midfield in half, finds the feet of Lacazette, and then the move can start.
Yep.
I can never understand people who don't rate Mesut Ozil.
He's decent.
Did you hear about the one 606 caller? Mm-mm. You know BBC has that phone-in show?
Yeah. Someone
called in and says, I will gladly drive Ozil to his next team. All he ever does is assist goals for other people.
What?
Yeah, let that sink in for a second.
I don't understand. I'm so annoyed by that comment that it reminded me that I was annoyed by Face Off. So here's my problem with Face Off.
All right.
When's the last time you saw that movie?
It's been a few years.
So you remember, I'm not spoiling much because the movie is called Face Off.
Yeah.
At one point, the main character, Sean Archer, I believe is the FBI agent, played by John Travolta, but then Nicolas Cage. They switch. And the whole idea is because like there's this terrorist plot and they need Nicolas Cage's brother in the movie to like reveal where the bomb is. And the brother so quickly is like, there's been a face swap, hasn't there? Like, he's on it. Like, if you came in here and acted a little bit weird, I would not be like, oh, Daryl's clearly face swapped with someone. Like, there is just an instant, like, oh, he knows right away. And that is the most ludicrous part of that movie, is like, that if it's such seamless surgery, how does the brother know right away?
I can't answer
the questions, Daryl.
I can't answer this.
You need to answer these things. And I think the other revealing fact that I learned from How Did This Get Made about that movie is the day Con Air finished filming, the next day Face Off started. So that gives you an insight into Nicolas Cage being insane. And with that said, anything else from the Premier League from the weekend, Daryl Grove? It genuinely did annoy me that much, that thought about what people rate with Mesut Ozil. There we are.
All right, so we're going to move on from Face Off.
I think so.
And we're going to talk about the best goal of the weekend.
Yes.
Which came from Soufiane Boufal for Southampton,
Yep.
where he dribbled the length of the field to beat West Brom 1-0.
Now, I would give this thumbs up. It felt like you gave it a thumbs up, but begrudgingly so.
So I give this goal a thumbs up for bringing back the old days of when the Premier League had players in it that weren't necessarily the best and most responsible players, but they produced moments of absolute magic that made the Premier League worth watching.
All right. I kind of want you to explain that a little bit more, because, I would say that, like, you could make the argument the Premier League still does not have the best players in the world. It has some of the best players in the world. But so what do you mean, like, what's so different? Like, what was so reminiscent of the
It used to be that, like,
days?
So back in the 90s, for example, there was a lot of, like, 90s, of not great English players in the Premier League. And then a few foreigners started coming in, and suddenly they were doing magical things that, like, we couldn't even, they blew our minds, it blew our tiny minds in England, that players could come and be this creative and this dribbly, and we were just like, what is Georgie Kincladze doing?
Doesn't that also coincide with, like, wait, you're not smoking and drinking immediately after the game?
Yes, a little bit. But Buffal's goal reminded me of that, because he did some things. If you watch this goal from the start...
Oh, I'm with you now. I got you.
When he starts to dribble, he does the one move that he loves, which is like the hop and roll, right? It's a great, fun move to watch. He does it directly into some West Brom players. In most other moments, he gets tackled right there in his own defensive half, right? But he manages to just, like, they don't step to him straight away. He manages to turn, and then he's just off and dribbling, right? And he does, like, a couple of, like, hip sways, and he does that move one more time at the top of the box. Then he gets around, I can't remember who it is in the end, and then bends it around the keeper and scores.
Yeah.
So it's like this sort of expression of skill that was kind of weirdly selfish and not that clever to start with, that ends in an absolutely, like, brilliant, it's going to be goal of the month probably easily.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I paused for a moment to think if there were any other, like, obvious challengers. And even, like, great goals from distance, it's still not like a 70-yard run through a bunch of different defenders and causing problems, and then a good finish from distance. Yeah, it's definitely goal of the month. If not, maybe goal of the season.
And we had a good few looks at this, right? There's no West Brom player actually tries to tackle him. It's like they're all...
Or really puts a body on him.
It's like they're slightly scared of his dribbling so much that they all try to... It's almost they've been told, like, stand him up, like, just jockey him, just run with him. And he just kind of ends up being able to dribble around them. But if no one really once ever steps into him... The only players that step into each other are two West Brom defenders.
Yeah, I mean, it really... and to that point, like, it feels like... And I don't know because I don't have the game in front of me or the stats in front of me, but it felt like every player that came into contact with him, like, was on a yellow, maybe. Like, it was just they all felt like they were trying not to do anything that could be considered to be a yellow card offense. I don't know why, but yeah, there was, even when he's dribbling, because even in the beginning you could say that's the time where you pull him back, or you do, like, maybe that foul there just to break up that counter. It's 0-0 at that point. But then once you get towards, like, closer to shooting range, you do expect someone to actually step to him and cause problems, and not just back off and try to do proper footwork, but end up looking like you're doing, like, the flash dance, and then he ends up beating you.
Several defenders end up doing.
Lots of topical references today.
So I've got him down as the Moroccan Matt Letitia.
Lovely.
Is what's going to happen.
I like that a lot.
with Soufiane before. But I think it's very telling that he didn't start this game, and he came in like the 80-something minute, right? I mean, so he scores the winner, and it's great, but he just reminds me of that type of... irresponsible player who you can't really rely on to play in a system, but he just has this overwhelming amount of talent, so that you kind of can't resist bringing him off the bench to see what happens. And that reminds me of the early Premier League days, and I'm kind of glad that stuff can still happen in the sort of really systematic, grinding Premier League that we have today.
Yep.
So that's my weird, like, thumbs up, thumbs down, odd feelings about Soufiane Boufal's goal.
First of all, I appreciated that entire explanation because it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I also want to say,
also thumbs up because it was against West Brom.
There's that. The Midlands. I want to say, though, to your point about this being like a kind of grinding season, and it definitely is. The teams that end up having success making top 4, challenging for the title, the ones that kind of figure stuff out and keep that same system in place and make it work. And I do think my final thumbs up is going to be to Antonio Conte because I feel like we've seen maybe the beginning of that Chelsea push that kind of happened last season where things weren't working so well, then stuff clicked, but there was some drama. Is it going to work? Is he going to stay? We're seeing that same stuff this season, but this game against Watford, it felt like things weren't working. They made changes. They win 4-2, and it just feels like the start of they won that one, they won that one, oh, they drew that one, oh, they won that one, and suddenly their form guide is ridiculous, and they're in second place in the table.
And can we give a thumbs up to Batshuayi? Because he was having a tough time of it with Morata sort of looming over him.
Yep.
This game, Batshuayi comes off the bench.
Yeah, Morata struggled.
2, I believe.
Sure.
Is really
Definitely the last one.
making the case that if he's not going to start ahead of Morata, he's at least a very viable option.
Yeah, and I think gives Antonio Conte something to think about, but gives Morata something to think about, because now you can't rest on your laurels and think, oh, it's my spot no matter what. Yeah. You've got to put player pushing you.
Someone else was brilliant in this game in the highlights I saw. Willian, yes, Willian was excellent.
Yep.
Great crossing.
And Pedro's goal, the opener. I mean, it was kind of what you've expected from Chelsea coming out of last season, was suddenly they're attacking and scoring a ridiculous goal, but then also playing lockdown defense. And then you've got N'Golo Kante and Timo Bakayoko.
Oh.
Yikes.
Thumbs really high in the air. Timo Bakayoko, too tall to scoop. I think it was Max Brito coming out of the Watford defence, tries to scoop a ball over the top of Bakayoko.
When it's still 3-2 at that point.
Yeah, Bakayoko's just nope, I'm getting in the way of that.
And goal. Yes.
So well done, Bakayoko.
Yeah.
All right, we've got US Under-17s to talk about. We've got some Major League Soccer as well. But first, Taylor, today's sponsor, is a returning newbie. It's Sterelli. Sterelli are the makers of the upgraded insoles Speed Grip. They give you more traction, which means more speed, power, and control.
In my second game today, I watched a gentleman take his shoe off and throw it across the field in frustration because I think the cleats blew out, but also he was having trouble finding traction. And I did pause and think,
you're kidding me.
I should maybe recommend
You're not one of those people
Sterelli.
You wouldn't lie just to... You wouldn't make up a story just to put
it was especially weird because he was a center back. And you don't usually think of a center back as such wear and tear in terms of the paciness, the explosive paciness that maybe his cleats are blown out. I said that mostly just to offend you. But no, I really did. He threw it out of bounds to the extent that his teammate turned and was like, did you just throw your shoe at me? What's happening? And I thought about recommending Sterelli, but then I was like, no, he might get grip too fast, and that could be problematic since I'm going up against him.
Yeah, and you got to play him again maybe next season. So we're not recommending Speed Grip to that particular person that Taylor has to go up against, but to everybody else, here's how it works. It's an insole that goes into your soccer cleats. And it's got it's made of this fibre that sort of bonds to your foot, not permanently, but it gets a really good grip. It gets a really good
Venom suit.
It gets a really good grip on your foot, so that when you run, there's none of the slipping. Yep. So you don't have any. You get traction. You don't lose it when it's slipping and sliding.
Yeah.
So you increase your speed. Split seconds count, and Speed Grip will give you those split seconds.
I want that. I want to be in a position where split seconds do count, and it's not it took him 4 seconds to get there. I want it to be it took him 3.5 seconds to get there. Thank you, Sterelli.
So you can get 20% off of the Speed Grips. Speed Grips are $39.99. You can get 20% off at Sterelli.com. The link will be in the show notes. If you use the discount code TSS. That's 20% off anything at Sterelli.com with the discount code TSS. If you're already the fastest person in the world and you don't need Speed Grip, Sterelli also have some other great gear. They have these sort of armoured type things. I've heard a lot of injured people like to wear Sterelli because it's an extra layer, and goalkeepers love it as well because they have the protective layers for goalkeepers.
Many reasons to visit the site, so thank you again to Sterelli for sponsoring today's show. I'm going to say not thank you to your countrymen for making me feel sad.
So, Saturday morning, it was England Under-17s against US Under-17s. It finished 4-1 to England. I got up and watched it. It was not the game I was expecting.
Nope, me neither. Especially with the trash talking that I engaged in right before kickoff.
Yeah.
I was just trying to drum up interest, and instead it didn't go so well.
It backfired quickly because England were 2-0 up within 14 minutes,
yeah,
I would say.
Great.
And to be clear, I'm not gloating because I really did want the US to win this game, especially the moment we're in US soccer right now. And I'm very up on this US Under-17 team, right? Andrew Carton, Tim Weah, all those players. That I thought it would have been really good for US soccer fans to see a U17 team go deep into a tournament. It would make us all feel good about the future.
Right. But with that said, I think there's a decent chance, as I said to you off air, that England win this U17 World Cup. And I think they've been incredibly impressive. If you look at the players they have and the clubs those players play for, it's a very deep squad with a lot of talented players. Whether or not they get any minutes with their first team or with the England senior team very much remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think you then compare that to this U.S. team, who are very talented, don't get me wrong, but you have, two holding midfielders starting at center back. You have your best,
Durkin and Sands.
You have arguably your best holding midfielder suspended for this game.
Yeah.
You've got a couple makeshift players playing a different, or makeshift, like people filling in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're real players.
Yeah. And so you can understand a little bit more why this result occurs. I understand why people are disappointed, because I also want them to go far. But it felt like the reaction was sort of like, oh, this is typical U.S. And we even had a few people who were like, oh, I tuned in because you guys were talking about how exciting this team was. They look pretty terrible.
And they were. In the round of 16 against Paraguay, they were magnificent to watch. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be cheered up, you can still go and find the Andrew Carlton highlight reel from that game, and you see a very, very, very talented player.
It feels like this team is one that is very much based on form, which is an obvious thing to say about a soccer team. But what I mean is that, like, once they find that rhythm, it seems like they kick into this gear that other teams can't hang with.
Yeah.
But when they don't, they really stutter and don't go anywhere. And it felt like this game, that Paraguay game, was a team playing cohesive soccer. This one was a lot of individuals trying to maybe jumpstart the game at best, and at worst be like, oh, well, I'm getting mine, so I'm going to score a goal.
There were a few selfish moments from the whole front four, from Carlton, Sargent, Akinyola, and Weah, of sort of shooting when it wasn't really the best option, right? Yeah. It felt very teenage in some ways, and that's a reminder that these guys are just kids. I think the problem here is that England's tactics were the perfect counterbalance to what the US likes to do, right? The US likes to win the ball off your midfield and go fast, whereas England seemed quite happy to kind of I think the US had more possession in this game.
I think it ended 50-50, but yes, for large stretches.
There's a lot of the US with the ball struggling to find their way forward, and then England would pick off the US, and then England would come straight at you. And you had real talented players like Phil Foden, who's at Manchester City. His name doesn't sound scary, but his feet are, right? He has the first two assists, basically, right? He sets up Ryan Brewster for the first two goals. Yeah. So they would just come back at you with real danger and real talent.
Yeah, and I think when you face a team that has that level of ability, you have to really elevate your game. And what you can't do, we really need a phrase for this, but you can't put in that type of game where, like, we've both played in games where we're like, all right, no more long balls. It's got to be all, like, quick passing. And then you get the first time you get that ball, it's like, ooh, but that long ball's on. It'll work for me. Like, and then you try it anyway, and you get, like, sucked into doing that sort of play. And it felt like the United States kept getting sucked into that, like, all right, I'm not going to shoot it's kind of, I'm going to shoot from distance and you just see what happens. Like, I'm going to be the one to get it going. You have to be able to respond to a team that's as talented as England with your own talent and sort of playing to your strengths and not playing as individuals. And it just felt like that was the big difference.
Yep. And so let's look back on this US Under-17. So this Under-17 World Cup for the United States. One, they made the quarterfinal, right? That's an achievement. Two, they made the quarterfinal with no centre-backs. They literally had two of their best defensive midfielders playing as their centre-backs. Chris Durkin barely got to play defensive midfield, barely got to play his best position, right? Three, they had that one game where they really showed you what they were capable of. And this may not be, some people may not agree with this, but to me that's really what Under-17 tournament is about, right? They had a team experience. I saw Andrew Carlton posting afterwards about, like, can't take this away from me. This was a great experience. I love all these guys. Because worth pointing out, it's over for them now, right? This U17 team, this is the end point of their U17 careers. Now they have to go off and sort of go try and get minutes at teams, right? It's the end of, like, the residency program. They've all, like, lived down at Bradenton together. This was a tight group. Now that period is over.
Yeah, and I'm with you in terms of that, like, this is a team that probably impressed more than we thought they would at times, but I still think, like, strangely on paper, it's a disappointing team. And I don't think they disappointed, but I think it's just because that final group stage loss drops them into third place. So then it's like, oh, they finished third in the group, they won their first round game, then they get kind of blown out by England in the quarterfinal. And I think if you look at it just from the results, you maybe think they underwhelmed. But the reality is, I mean, they played two very good games in the beginning, or two disciplined games in the beginning.
Yeah, India
have the weird way the best third place team going through works out, that then you lose one game and that's how it happens, and that's probably the big downside. But then you end up getting that knockout round win, and that's really impressive. And then, to get beat by England 4-1 is not great.
I think it's a reminder that the players developed by Premier League teams are currently better than the players developed by Major League Soccer development academies with one guy from PSG.
Yeah. Yeah. And Werder Bremen? Now?
He was developed by the Development Academy.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from the under-17s, but we'll be keeping track of those guys throughout the next year or so through the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, through if Andrew Carton plays for Atlanta, if Chris Durkin plays for DC, we'll be watching Josh Sargent at Bremen and Timothy Weah at PSG. There's lots to keep an eye on. Akinyola at Toronto.
Yep.
Yeah, so lots to keep an eye on.
I believe we've already established that Andrew Carlton's getting a senior call-up, though, for the November camp, so we're fine.
So can we talk about this? So after the Paraguay game, a lot of people were saying, hey, these guys need to be in the first team for November. If you do that, you're skipping a whole generation of people are like the under-20 players, essentially, the guys who are ahead of them, the McKennies, the Adams, the Gonzalez, right? Yeah.
The face I'm making is that that we literally did conclude that he should be starting at left wing if you're going to go with if you're going to call in players that have 5 caps or fewer to the national team for that November game, we absolutely landed on it should be Andrew Carlton at left wing.
I don't recall that. I'm sure there's no recorded evidence of that.
No, definitely not.
All right, you want to go to Major League Soccer?
Sure.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. It was decision day, is what they call it. The final games of the regular season. Playoffs start Wednesday. Playoffs are not messing about there upon us Wednesday.
No, they're not.
So we did a quick...
Well, they're trying to get the off-season, just done faster because you don't want it to stretch on for a month and a half. Just kidding.
Well, there's going to be an international break in the middle as part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did our own...
The best way to get playoff momentum going.
Our own whip around of Major League Soccer. Yeah. What did we see, Taylor? What we got? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
You want me to lead?
Yes,
Then
please.
I'm going close to home, and I'm going to say thumbs down to DC United for not honoring their legacy.
I thought they did a great job of last call at RFK. It was really nicely marketed, and everyone left with good feels.
Over 40,000 tickets sold.
Yeah. Why are your thumbs pointing
down? Because
I'm
just saying, when the Washington professional football team, as people like to call them, when they said goodbye to RFK, they did so in 1996 by blowing out the Dallas Cowboys 37-10.
Yeah.
They destroyed their arch rival in their final game. For DC to lose to the Red Bulls in their final game at RFK, it just felt a little wrong. It just felt a little wrong and a little bit dirty.
The last goal was a little kind of lame as well, right?
Yeah.
It was like a low ball that bounced through the box and ended up in the back of the net.
Penalty save, though, so there's that.
So there's that.
So I want to say thumbs down to DC United because really, I feel like you owed the fans a win there. And that didn't happen. And then I'm going to say thumbs down to Ben Olsen's choice of attire. That also has to be mentioned at this point.
So he was in a suit with sneakers.
You're not Larry David, Ben. You're not...
Or Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah, I guess he did that. Yeah, he's probably the more famous of the sneaker wearers.
Didn't we work out that he probably played in the Legends game? So that may explain why he was dressed oddly.
We did, but it's not as though he played the Legends game in a suit. And that's where that theory falls apart, I realized after the fact. It was still down to put on a suit. And did he leave his dress shoes at home and was like, well, I'm going with this?
Did the field look weird to you as well?
You mean atrocious?
Yeah.
Yes, it looked atrocious.
It looked like it had big divots all over it.
And I think,
was the Legends game full of slide tackles?
And if you're not going to say it, then I will quote you. I think your line was, how does RFK still have football lines on it?
Yes. It
really looked like it
faded
did.
Football lines. I'm guessing maybe a high school has played there recently or something. There may be some games that it's still used for.
Yeah, which again is not great.
But DC does not own the stadium, right? They rent it from the city, so the city may be renting it to other sports teams.
I suppose. Or just graffiti artists who like to draw lines. Who knows?
Very straight lines at 10-yard increments.
The field looked terrible. The first thing I saw when we tuned into the highlights was just there are just divots everywhere.
Yeah.
Which I guess, maybe it was the Legends game. Maybe they played golf on it at some point. I don't really know. But it was not great. Maybe they're already taking chunks out of it to be remembered. Who can say for sure? Either way, it was a great atmosphere from the fans, but I would say maybe not the send-off that RFK deserves.
Okay. Then I'm going to say thumbs up to Darren Mattocks of the Portland Timbers for stepping into Fernando Adi's very, very big shoes. I assume he has big shoes.
Both of those are accurate statements.
I don't know. I actually don't know Adi's foot size, but he's a tall guy, so I assume
17.
Get out of it. But he's a tall guy, right? So I assume he has to have big feet. Darren Mattocks has absolutely stepped up in Fernando Adi's injury. At least if this final day is anything to go by. I saw one really good fake and leave that didn't end in a goal, but it should have because Mattocks made the chance, and then he actually scored the winner that won the West for Portland Timbers as they beat Vancouver 2-1.
And that's the key thing.
Go on, Darren Mattocks.
Because there was a decent chance that they do do not win the West at the start of this game to come back.
They had to win it, right?
Yeah, they had to. And so they end up getting the result. They go through, I believe, on games 1. Could be wrong. Maybe they ended up on points total. I can't remember. But either way, it's Portland winning the West in, I would say, convincing fashion, beating a rival for... It was basically going to be Portland or Vancouver at the end of the day who won the West. So to beat your rival for that title, it's a pretty impressive way to go into the postseason.
Your other rival is what I'm going to call it.
That's fair.
Also, I love a cutback. Vitas gave Matex a cutback for that goal. I love a cutback.
And I believe with that win, they also won the Cascadia Cup. So,
all right.
Some silverware to be proud of.
What else you got from Major League Soccer?
Looks at his notes and says, thumbs up to Atlanta United for making the playoffs. I think that's worth noting in their 2-2 draw with Toronto at home. It's difficult for an expansion franchise. We heard that many, many times heading into this season. I think a lot of people thinking there was no chance they would make it, or a very slim chance. So to make the playoffs, and they did have a chance, I believe they had a chance mathematically to get the second spot and get that first round bye.
Yeah.
They did not end up doing that, but they still made the playoffs nonetheless.
Related, I'm going to say thumbs down to the fans who made the Biggest Losers banner that had the faces of Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley on there, and then booed Altidore and Bradley when they got the ball. I assume this is because the US failed to qualify for the World Cup, so they sort of saw them coming into town and took it out on them. Josie Altidore scored after being booed, went over, cupped his ear to the fans. I think they threw beer at him, and then Giovinco drunk the beer and jumped on Josie's shoulders. It just you gave a platform for Josie Altidore to be mad and score against you.
The only thing I'll say to that, I don't fully understand why Josie Altidore tried to head the thrown beer. That seemed like a poor decision. If for no other reason than because if you don't make contact, which he didn't, I feel like that's like easy fodder for jokes. Like, he can't even head a beer cup.
Well, he had just
when
scored.
It's thrown at him. Yeah.
And then Michael Bradley cleared the ball off the line.
He did.
Cleared an Atlanta goal off the line in the final minute. So I feel like you poked both those bears, and they both bit you.
Yeah, they did. They also, with that point, I believe, have the points record, right? Like they set the record
69
for most points ever in a season. So not bad, Toronto. Not bad. But also not bad to Atlanta. Both bound for the playoffs, and maybe they'll meet again.
What else you got for Major League Soccer?
I've got thumbs up to Danny Houston, I think is how you pronounce that one, in San Jose's.
I think it might be Hosen.
Hosen would probably be, he's Dutch, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably more accurate. San Jose's 3-2 win over Minnesota, their last minute win that saw them make the playoffs.
Yep.
Hosen had a goal and assist, a beautiful assist. It's kind of that similar like Harry Kane bending ball but low.
It's very similar,
never
right?
going to get to it, but it's going to be finished. And there's your goal. Yeah.
But the winning goal, which actually put them in the playoffs, was Marco Urena.
Yep.
Stepping up to cancel out another Costa Rican goal. I believe Calvo had scored for Minnesota to make it 2-2, which was keeping San Jose out of the playoffs. Yeah. Then Urena steps up to make it 3-2, puts San Jose in, dumps FC Dallas out despite Dallas's 5-1 victory over the LA Galaxy. But I think Urena didn't even enter the game until the 88th, and then puts them in the playoffs in the 90-something. So
90 plus 3.
Much as it's painful because he's hurt the US a lot lately.
Yep.
A salute to Marco Urena for that.
Yes, I'm going to say, without anything else to say about San Jose, Minnesota, before we move on to my next thumbs down, which is to Clint Dempsey for making me wrong about his interaction with Danilo Acosta. Because you were absolutely right on that one. My thought was, it's not Danilo, is it?
Danny.
Danny Acosta. We'll go with Danny,
It is Danilo Acosta.
Okay, but he goes by Danny, yeah. I'm going to say, when we saw the kind of interaction they had where Danny Acosta was being interviewed a couple weeks ago, and then you saw him drawing with Clint Dempsey, I thought it was good-natured, sort of like, oh, no, Clint Dempsey's kind of razzing him. It's nothing. Like, no, I'm now inclined to believe. Just based on this game where he gets sent off, Clint Dempsey does, throws an elbow. I know some people are frustrated that like there was some tugging in the box or whatever, that should have been a call. But Clint Dempsey intentionally threw an elbow at a player's face. Whether or not the guy went down easily, I don't really care.
What was the defender's name?
I cannot remember. But he's always that's always gonna be a red card. And then Clint Dempsey's sarcastic applause to the ref, had some words with the referee, had some words with the player. I could see that suspension getting increased, and suddenly
it's gonna hurt Seattle in the playoffs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean he could very well miss their like home and away fixture.
Is there any way he was just kind of like wrestling his way past and his arm just swiped on the way through?
I am sure that's what he will say, but I think if you just look at the way that elbow gets delivered, he knows what he's doing and he knows the force that he's using.
It's a little too much of a sharp movement as well to be sort of like a tussle. You know what I mean?
And it's just dumb at the end of the day. Like Seattle are already winning. You don't need to do that. They're relying on you. Jordan Morris is injured.
Yeah.
You need Clint Dempsey in there to help link up that attack. and now he's not going to be there. And I just think that's a foolish decision by a veteran player. And then to go and get in the player's face, it just makes me feel like, maybe he is just a bit of a grump who likes to have words with people.
Thumbs up to Columbus Crew fans who turned out in force at Columbus City Hall in a show of strength to save the Crew. I think thumbs up to all the Crew fans who have emailed us after the Reddit post to say thanks for supporting the Save the Crew movement. I would say you're kind of filling up our inbox. There's a lot of emails coming in, and here's how I would say thank you for the emails. But it's better to go to savethecrew.com, which now has a list of actions you can take, one of which is contacts for various Major League Soccer front office people and Major League Soccer teams, staff, that you can reach out and sort of ask them to vote against moving the team from Columbus to Austin. So don't email us, email Major League Soccer teams, put the pressure on there. If you go to savethecrew.com, there'll be links to you can follow to send your emails. There's even email templates if you have trouble writing the email yourself. I'd say that to all fans of any team, any soccer in the United States, if you don't want to see teams moved around at will.
And I want to say thumbs up as well to all of the fans who made the Save Columbus banners. There were lots of them all around the league.
Hashtag Save the Crew. It was all over MLS.
It made me happy, yeah. And from what we've heard reported, it seems to be working as well.
Is that right?
Well, it just sounds like maybe none of the MLS owners are particularly thrilled by this whole situation to begin with. And then, they're probably not used to getting a bunch of phone calls from people saying, hey, I want to talk to you about a different club.
Because this is kind of like a call your senators moment, right? If you put enough pressure and make your will shown strong enough to all the other MLS owners, you really can sort of influence their vote. I mean, and maybe you can't, but you won't know unless you really try hard.
Yep. Well, we shall soon find out.
So there you go. Savethecrew.com. Anything else from you, Taylor Rockwell?
From Major League Soccer or from the weekend in general? Because I have one more.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I have a thumbs down to Galatasaray fans. Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, 0-0 draw in the Intercontinental Derby, which was available on beIN. So I did not watch that, but it was the first time I think that game's been on broadcast.
Is Turkish Super Lig on beIN, or is this just a one-off?
I believe they have the rights to it. I think they probably show like 1 or 2 games a weekend. I don't know. I haven't watched any. But I can tell you, thumbs down to the fans for... I think a player gets sent off in the later stages of the game, and for that, the players decided to throw bottles and cans at the assistant referee. There are plenty of photos of him taking cover, ducking down, getting hit by stuff. Unacceptable. Stupid stuff from Galatasaray fans, especially because that almost certainly means stadium ban for the next game.
Right. You tell them.
Yep.
Sorry, one thing back to MLS. Just let people know. Playoffs are Wednesday night and Thursday night. Yes. So looking at our chalkboard, Wednesday night it's Chicago versus New York Red Bulls and also Vancouver versus San Jose. Thursday night it's Atlanta versus Columbus and Houston versus Sporting KC. We'll have short reviews of those games on the following day's shows.
Also this week we're going to be maybe discussing the U.S.'s possible theoretical interim manager if that gets announced.
They said start of the week we'll have an announcement.
Sure.
We'll have a decision.
Sure. We'll see how that goes. Tab Ramos. And we'll be...
Actually, can we talk about this a second? Sorry. Sure. I've just realised that it may be that they were waiting until after MLS playoffs because we think it's going to be Tab Ramos, right? But it could be an MLS coach and it could be they're waiting for a guy to be out of the playoffs.
That is a possible idea. It is also the worst idea possible.
If it's Pareja, because Dallas now haven't made the playoffs, then we'll know that they were waiting for their coach of choice to be out of the playoffs.
Yeah, but again, that's a terrible, terrible PR move.
I'm not defending it.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to fire the guy. We're going to bring in a coach who didn't make the playoffs. And if it's Pareja, yes, he has a track record, but it's also... had an entire team that was like, we do not want to play here anymore. Not a great sign, is all I'm saying. So I'm hoping that is not the case.
What else we got going on this week?
We are going to be answering listener questions. We have a backlog of those. And
lots of U.S. national team questions came in, surprisingly, last week.
And with that in mind, we're also going to be looking at maybe like 10 ideas or so about how to fix U.S. soccer.
Yeah, we're going to float some ideas out there. Yeah, how about that?
I'm sure we won't get any feedback.
All right, we've still got scouting to come on today's show. I have a couple of quick thumbs up and down if you got time for me.
Sure.
US women's national team beat Korea 3-1 last week. Julie Ertz diving header nutmeg, I believe, is how I think US Soccer phrased it, but it was accurate. And it was at a weird angle as well, right? She dived at a weird angle, headed it back the other way. So thumbs up to Julie Ertz for that header, one of my favourite players. Then the US beat Korea 6-0. Kristen Press had a great goal in that game, put it in the top corner. So if the US can keep playing Korea, I think we'll get to 200-0 if we just keep scheduling games against Korea.
Sure. I didn't love that game was on turf. That
the
didn't seem like a
first
great
one,
idea.
the most recent one wasn't. The first one was.
And then I think former co-host Laura pointed out on Twitter that like they didn't allow tickets to be purchased in the like top half of the stadium, so it looked even more sparse than maybe it should have in terms of attendance.
I'm pretty sure, based on her Twitter photo she sent us, Laura went with a Sunil out banner.
Or at least with somebody who had one,
Yeah, and a can of Strongbow, it looked like. I'm just saying what was in the photo.
It's whatever works. It's whatever works.
Speaking of Sunil out, I saw the Q&A, the US Soccer presidential candidate Q&A, where Steve Gans, the Boston attorney, and Eric Winalda, who you may have heard of, he's a former soccer player,
once or twice,
former goal scorer, did the Q&A with the US Adult Soccer Association, which is one of the voting blocks in the National Council. It means Eric Winalda, he hasn't filed the paperwork yet, doesn't have the nominations yet, but he is running for US soccer president. He's basically said, yes, I'm doing this. So I want to give a thumbs up to that. I still want to hear more of his platform and all that sort of stuff, but I like the idea of a famous, charismatic, outspoken candidate for US soccer president.
I think I just still have a problem with how many candidates seem to be out there, and I kind of don't know the status, and I kind of want them all to get together and be like, look, this is the guy, let's all back him.
Yeah, like in a primary, maybe someone should have just decided no specific party this year. Like at least one party, they also decided, hey, we're the guy.
Yeah, or not had other people be like, hey, she is the guy, I guess is the thing. Now it's weird. But I guess I just feel like because when things are divided, it is probably not Sunil Gulati who's going to lose votes as a result. It seems like his base is pretty shored up.
Yeah.
And the people who are willing to consider other candidates, I feel like they would maybe be more inclined to consider one specific candidate rather than like, well, this guy's good and that one might be good and maybe there's this too.
Yeah,
so you've got that issue in there.
It could split the vote.
Yeah.
But I think we'll know by December 7th who's really going ahead with it. They may have narrowed the field at that point. Sunil Gulati may not stand. He kept saying like, my future's still to be decided.
I scoff at that mere suggestion.
Interesting. All right.
He absolutely is running.
You think?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out in December.
1,000,000%.
That's not how percentages work.
He is 100% running for U.S. soccer president.
Sunil Gulati knows how percentages
when
work.
His lifelong friend is writing articles about how there's no other realistic possibility, yes, he's running for president.
Was that Paul Gardner?
Yeah.
Okay. So thumbs up for that. I also want to give a very quick thumbs up to Eni Aluko. So she has followed this complaint against the FA. She's not given up on it. And this past few days, the chairman and the chief executive of the FA had to face a parliamentary committee where you basically, through just their own sort of casual, not very well thought out answers, they basically revealed institutional racism at the Football Association in the form of not taking complaints about racism very seriously. Literally an email was revealed where I can't remember if it was the chief exec or the chairman, received an email about racial abuse and responded with something like, why are you wasting my time with this stuff? So the FA just painted in a horrible, horrible light.
And does anything come of that, though?
So the problem is there's no oversight of the FA. The only thing that can come of it is that the parliamentary committee basically said, you all should consider your positions. So they're really sort of under pressure from the public, but not under pressure from anyone from within the FA. It's like a self-governing thing. It's very much like US soccer president.
That sounds like the most stereotypically British response I can imagine. like this group of parliamentary figures being like, you need to consider your position. It's just like, that is the most British scolding. Take it seriously.
Yep.
So that's good, I guess, that they got that, but maybe not great that it sort of is like, well, yes, there's institutional racism and no one takes it seriously.
It's good that it's out in the open.
Try to fix it?
It's good that it's out in the open and now they have to try to fix it. Because I think the thing that always worries me about governance with anything, like say US Soccer or the FA or FIFA or anything else, is you can think that you're doing the right thing, but you suddenly just start protecting your own organization and then you start protecting it even when it's obviously done something wrong.
But I'm confused then, why wouldn't they just do that? Why wouldn't they just circle the wagons and be like, well, this will pass. We can just keep the people in place. If you're saying there's no punitive reaction to it, then isn't it just more of the same from the FA?
Well, no, but it's out in the open now. And before it was that they were just saying, oh, no, there's no problem here. There's no problem here. Now there's it's that thing of daylight is the best disinfectant kind of thing. Now there's obviously a problem and they're going to have to look at themselves and try and make some internal reforms.
Or you just cover the FA in bleach. That'd be fine too.
I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's better than it was. Put it that way, right? Okay. My thumbs are tired.
All right. And should we move on to scouting?
Yes. Would you like to start us off?
Sure. Charles McHugh scouting Trent Alexander-Arnold, 19-year-old English right back for Liverpool. Alexander-Arnold scored on a shot from outside the box in the 90th minute during Liverpool's 7-0 trouncing of Maribor in the Champions League. Jurgen Klopp's rotation system has Alexander-Arnold playing in the Champions League and Joe Gomez playing in the Premier League.
We could soon have Joe Gomez playing centre-back in the Premier League and Alexander-Arnold getting some right-back Premier League minutes, right?
It's not
Depending
the craziest
on
thing.
what happens with Dejan Lovren's social media. Will Hudson is scouting Ryan Sessegnon, the 17-year-old English left-back for Fulham. Will says, good month for Sess. Loads of dangerous runs up the left, an assist, an MLS assist, and a proper 97th minute clearance off the line to help Fulham pull 7 points from 3 games against Preston, QPR and Forest on either side of the international break. He still reliably switches off once or twice a game in his own half. He's a teenager, after all. But nothing truly disastrous has come of it lately. Rumours persist of a 50 million move to Tottenham. Maybe one day, just hopefully not yet.
Scott Friedman scouting Emery Moore, 20-year-old Turkish winger for Celta Vigo. Much better news, says Scott. In his first start, Moore netted his first La Liga goal in Celta Vigo's 5-2 rout of Las Palmas. He scored Celta's first goal of the game in the 16th minute on a nice off-the-ball run, receiving a nice pass and sliding it past the keeper. He was subbed off when his keeper was red carded in the 52nd minute, but the game was out of hand by that point with Celta up 3-0.
All right, I'm glad it's going better for Emery Moore.
Yeah.
Clay Jenkins is scouting Jadon Sancho, the 17-year-old English left winger for Dortmund. Sancho was recalled from England's U17 squad ahead of Dortmund's Champions League match versus Apoel. The youngster was in the matchday squad, but did not feature in their 1-1 draw, which would make it seem weird, right? That Bosch recalled Sancho when he was like in the middle of a U17 World Cup. But then, this weekend, he came off the bench against Eintracht Frankfurt. And this is since the scouting report we've seen this happen. There was a brief 6 or 7 minutes where there was Sancho on the left, English teenager, and Christian Pulisic on the right, American teenager for Borussia Dortmund, and they were my absolute favourite team in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because they were teenagers?
English and American teenagers.
I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
To get in transatlantic attacking harmony.
There it is. I was wondering why the interest was so strong.
Yeah.
Now I have my answer.
Sancho did, his first dribble was ill-advised and he got tackled. But a couple of minutes later, he snuck in, had a volley at goal that was saved, and then should have been finished by, I think, Shaheen. Should have been the winner for Dortmund. Yep. He should have been involved in the winner, and unfortunately, it was blocked on the line.
So you dislike Nouri Shaheen all the more as a result?
Well, Shaheen also scored in this game, so he's fine. He gets a pass.
Even so. Michael Spinelli scouting George Bello, the 15-year-old American left back for Atlanta United. Bello played up with the Atlanta U19s last weekend, who came from behind twice to beat North Carolina Fusion 4-3, with Bello scoring the third goal. Bello was not the only youngster punching above his weight for Atlanta United, as the academy had at least 10 kids across 13 matches last weekend playing up a level.
Is that because most of their players are at the U17 World Cup?
Yes, probably.
Like Gosling and Carlton.
I'm going to actually read the next one to save Richie's for you. Louis Grafe, scouting Joshua Kimmich, 22-year-old German right back for Bayern. In the time since Lewis last filed a report, Kimmich has managed 4 goals and 7 assists, including that lovely header last week in the Champions League.
Is that a catch-up report from Lewis?
Yes.
Thanks, Lewis. Richie Garcia is scouting Emerson Hyndman, the 21-year-old American midfielder for Bournemouth, we hope. Richie says Emerson continues to play for Bournemouth U21s. He got the assist for the Cherries' game-winning goal in a 3-2 win over Norwich's under-21 squad. However, it seems his future is so dire that Hyndman did not make it into the Total Soccer Show podcast focused on the future of the USWNT. Soccer analyst Daryl Grove, I've heard of him, once sang the praises of this national team hopeful, but alas, his start has dropped to the murky waters of some tasteless joke.
Uh-huh. Daryl Grove?
What tasteless joke?
I think him basically writing this...
this is the tasteless joke.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you want to ask me about it?
I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the future of the U.S. men's national team.
Well, this was before I saw Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, and Jonathan Gonzalez. Mm-hmm. The future moves fast. You got to keep up.
This is why you don't make declarative statements that can then be recorded for posterity. Jeff Markman scouting Reece Nelson, 17-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal, and Jeff refuses to say that he's a wingback. Worth noting there. Reece started at right wingback for the Gunners as they eked out a victory away to Red Star Belgrade in tepid Europa League action. Nelson was not involved in Arsenal's brilliant mess of a goal, but he was one of the better performers on the day, with highlights including nutmegging a defender in the box, forcing a good save, and having the, as Tardini would say, cojones to step up and take Arsenal's most dangerous free kick opportunity. It was a good, confident performance and makes Jeff eager to see Nelson in his natural attacking position. Someday, I hope. Please, Arsene, says Jeff.
Alec Brew is scouting Davy Selke, 22-year-old German striker for Hertha Berlin. After coming on as a halftime sub to make his Hertha debut last weekend in a 2-0 loss, Selke started and scored a thumping header off a corner in Hertha's 2-1 away loss to Zorya Luhansk from Ukraine in the Europa League. He then came on this weekend in Hertha's 1-1 draw with Freiburg, earned the penalty for Hertha's lone goal. MLS assist, asks Alec?
I think so. Have we established that? If you draw the penalty, we've decided it's worth an assist?
I haven't seen the footage, but I'm going to say yes.
Fair enough. Ryan Kinahan scouting Bruma. Gotta love Ryan's attention to detail. In the age category, he put young Portuguese attacker for RB Leipzig.
In the TSS scouting network?
Correct.
A young player?
Yeah, shocker. Bruma is still good and looking a bit like the truth, says Ryan. He provided the assist for Leipzig's second goal in their win over Dortmund, which was Dortmund's first home loss of the season.
We saw this. I saw this in the highlights last weekend.
He good.
Scott Glack is scouting George Acosta, the 17-year-old American midfielder for North Carolina FC Youth, and theoretically the U17s, right? Scott says Acosta played in only 2 of the USA's 5 games at the U17 World Cup, but did manage 1 assist and 1 goal. Scott is worried about George's playing time in this tournament. Same here. He doesn't have the pace or excitement that Carlton and others have, but most sources list him as the U17's best passer of the ball. This could be a whole other topic about US number 10s. And if you're not fast and you're not strong and you're just a nice passer, you suddenly there's no spot for you in a team.
Yeah, and that was kind of actually Scott's sub point is basically it seems like maybe George is in the wrong time period to be playing for the U17s. Essentially, that right now it's more like the physical work and the hard running is maybe more prioritized than the silky passing.
It's what Hackworth likes. It's what Tab Ramos likes. It might be a problem for George Acosta going forward. And I'm also thinking of someone like Jackson Ewell, currently sitting on the bench at San Jose. Also wasn't selected for the U20s for kind of similar reasons, I think.
Yeah, let's move away from this before I get sad about the state of U.S. soccer again. Let's go to William Reed, scouting Harry Winks, 21-year-old English midfielder for Tottenham.
And England.
Winks started against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. He impressed in his role in the center of midfield and was integral in the play that led to Varane's own goal.
Yeah, Winks is suddenly Tottenham starting midfielder, right? Did we mention he was always he started in the Liverpool game and he got his first England cap against Lithuania? Winks is absolutely killing it.
Yeah, man.
Go on, Harry.
Go on, England.
Finally, Craig
Gotta have
Allison.
someone to root for at the World Cup.
Craig Allison is scouting Jack Harrison, the 20-year-old English winger for NYCFC. Craig says Jack made a successful debut with England's under-21s, the national team, last week. He played in both matches, starting in the 1-0 victory over Andorra. Harrison appeared to be very comfortable with the squad. He had a red card overturned, meaning he was eligible for NYCFC's final regular season game against Columbus. I think we switched to MLS halfway through that scouting report.
We did. And he started. So there you go.
Was that some Taylor editing or some Craig writing?
Which thing?
The switching from England under 21s to Major.
It was a blending.
It was a blending.
Yes. That is great.
All right, so thank you to Charles, Will, Scott, Clay, Michael, Lewis, Richie, Jeff, Alec, Ryan, Scott, William, and Craig for today's scouting reports. If you'd like to join the TSS Scouting Network, it's TotalSoccerShow.com/join.
That is correct.
I am always correct with my URLs from the Total Soccer Show website.
Yes.
Yeah? I dare you to find one time when I'm not.
I'm good.
Yeah, thank you to everybody for scouting. Thank you to everybody for listening. We hope you will join us again for the inevitable emergency podcast when the US interim manager is announced, for our MLS reviews this week and for our sort of ideas about how we would fix US soccer. It sounds like such a grand idea when we say it that way. I'm almost scared to promote that show.
I'm very scared to promote that show and do that show, but more on that later.
We're going to do that this week.
Yeah.
All right, Taylor Rockwell. You over there. Thank you. You with the beard. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again later this week.